Joined by our good friend Jason Scheer, 24/7 Sports, covers the Arizona Wildcats. And Jason, it had to be nice for you after the, slog, the whirlwind, the roller coaster that realignment was, to jump into a season where the outside world at least had very little expectations for Arizona, and then see a team start to break through for the first time in a very long time.
Yeah, I think this is probably the most fun I've ever had covering a football team. I mean, no drama, legitimately good for the first time since probably 2014. There are multiple close games, and then to end it in the Alamo Bowl with beating Oklahoma the way they did. It was just really fun to be able to concentrate on football and cover this team.
So this was a team this year that they had a couple of things early on where you thought, oh, look, they're getting better, but they didn't win those games. And then sometimes that's like a next year thing. But Noah Fifita has kind of changed. Has he changed maybe upped the trajectory even more after what he was able to accomplish this year?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the fact that he basically came in the season starting the first football games of his career and put up the numbers that he did. If you were to take the numbers over a whole season, I mean, they would be just ridiculous. And for him to be able to do that, and then you say, okay, well, Arizona's going to have him for 2 more years. He's only going to get better. He even got better this season, from the first game he started to the last game. I think it's changed the outlook on the whole program. I mean, they returned 18 of 22 starters. He's one of them. And all of a sudden you're looking at a program where you said, maybe Arizona makes a bowl this season. That was the goal. I mean, the goal was to have Arizona win 6 games and make a bowl. And now all of a sudden you're talking about college football playoff. And a big part of that is because of Noah Fifita.
What has the fan base reaction to this kind of instant surge, not instant, but you know what I mean, pretty quick surge of success under Jedd Fisch? What's sort of just the reaction been like? Has it built up a little bit more electricity around Wildcats fan base?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly think that this is one of the only years I can remember where, at least in the last month or so, basketball interest and football interest has been the same. And that is unheard of in this town. It is a basketball town, and the reason is just the success. And it's always been where, if Arizona basketball was down, which doesn't happen often, football was down too. So it happened at the same time. But now it's kind of like everything's going well with Arizona athletics. The football team is clearly good. Jedd Fisch seems to be in it, for next season. A lot of guys are returning, and just overall it's excitement. I mean, people are more interested in football recruiting and the transfer portal and personnel and all that, as opposed to, okay, the season's over, let's just kind of take a break from Arizona football for a bit.
So how are they approaching the offseason to build around Noah Fifita? What have they done that helps them take that step as they get into the Big 12 where, Jason, I don't know who the favorite is right now, who it is going into next year.
Jason, Arizona's got to be in the mix, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would assume Arizona's one of the favorites. The biggest thing with Jedd Fisch, while Arizona's active in the transfer portal, the biggest thing with Arizona has always been keeping the players. And, and that's the thing where they were able to do it last year. This year, the way the transfer portal works, to Torrey McMillan, Noah Fifita, they had offers from other schools, but it's keeping those guys together. And Arizona really hasn't lost anyone to the portal that would be considered a major contributor next season. That'll still be the goal. The portal's going to open up again in the spring and all that. But then from there, once you keep the guys together, it's kind of like, Arizona lost Taylor Upshaw, defensive end, who was very good this past season. Well, now they're going to go and replace him. So the transfer portal, as opposed to Arizona going out and landing 15 guys, has been like, okay, we need 1 corner, we need 1 defensive end. So they probably need a couple other positions, and they feel that they're going to do pretty well there.
Jason, just to make, you were down in San Antonio, right, for the bowl game?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I know Paul asked you about the game itself, but what did you think of the Alamo Bowl experience? That's one that seems to get pretty high marks from anybody who ever goes and covers it. I have not covered an Alamo Bowl yet, but I've always heard good things. What was your experience like down in San Antonio?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, coming Arizona football, I don't cover a bowl every season.
Yeah.
But I would say that in terms of away football games and bowl games and all that, that was far and away the best experience I've had. I mean, the people that run the bowl did everything well. Everything was on point. We had transcripts, interviews, all of that. The events were great. I was almost surprised, how much I enjoyed the entire experience and how easy everything was. That is definitely a top class bowl. And I could see why, there were rumors like, oh, Arizona's looking at this bowl, maybe they're going to that bowl, but Arizona was adamant they wanted the Alamo Bowl, and I could totally see why.
So, recruiting wise, how much has the move to the Big 12 changed what their focus is? Has it helped them? And where they finished after December, do you feel like that's on a good upper trajectory?
Yeah, I mean, Arizona's class on paper wasn't great this past season. And a lot of it is they took a smaller class because there's so many guys returning. They only took 17 signees, I believe. And so on paper, it's not outstanding, but it's another class that meets needs. There's a few guys where they expect to play right away as a freshman. And the thing they've said consistently is that the belief is your success in recruiting isn't seen the same year. So they believe that, for instance, 2025 is where they'll kind of, the fruits of their labor. They're going to sign a very good class in 2025 is their belief. Something I've noticed early on with 2025 is they seem to be a little bit more aggressive in Texas. They went and they offered guys in Texas, but there seems to be more of a focus there. And I can only assume that's the Big 12, being able to kind of go there. And I'm sure they'll be active in California a little bit more because those schools are in the Big 10 and traveling. But there definitely seems to be a little more focus in Big 12 country, basically.
Has the effects of the whole Pac-2 lawsuit and all of that kind of seeped into your conversations on the boards at all? Like, how is all of the I guess, coming to an end with the Pac-12 and Oregon State and Washington State holding on to the power? Like, how has all that sort of been digested in your world and from an Arizona perspective?
Honestly, I think everyone's just kind of ready to move on, and that's part of the reason why I think the settlement happened very quickly is because eventually all parties involved, you kind of have to just move on, and you're going to lose some money, and, it's everyone's got to be liable for certain things should, the Pac-12 get sued or whatever, but eventually you got to move on. I mean, it's time your last football season in the Pac-12 it's over. You're a Big 12 school right around the corner, and it's time to kind of look ahead. And yeah, I mean, there's schools that I'm sure the AD is making, financial plans and kind of figuring everything out. But from a coach perspective, from a fan perspective, it's kind of, Big 12 full steam ahead.
Jason, now so you're transitioning to well, I mean, you kind of do it both, but basketball-wise, Arizona so far, what's like coming off of an enthusiastic football season, starting in the basketball season, what's the fan experience like?
Well, you might have to ask me again tomorrow or next week. The Arizona basketball got killed by Stanford, and so right now fans and fans and Arizona basketball fans react game by game. There is no bigger picture. And so if Arizona beats Colorado tonight, it'll be fine. And if they lose to Colorado, it'll get ugly. It is a very, and I think that's also a big difference. You're talking about football. Football is almost so used to losing that when they lose, it's kind of like they're mad, but it goes away. Basketball, it just lingers until the next win. And so, people are excited. They're always going to be excited about basketball. This is, again, it's a basketball town. And so every loss is just magnified. And so they have a big game tonight against Colorado. And for the fan base perspective, from my job perspective, it's probably a must win in order to kind of make things enjoyable to Saturday, to Utah. I mean, it's next game up always with Arizona basketball.
Well, they beat Duke and Michigan State, and that's not something that Baylor can say they did. So they've got nice wins. They got a couple tough losses. That Stanford one probably has to sting, though, a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, they lost to Purdue and they lost to Florida Atlantic. And, Florida Atlantic wasn't a bad loss, but then Florida Atlantic goes and loses to Florida Gulf Coast, who's terrible. And it's like, well, gosh, they just lost to that awful team that beat us. And, I think Stanford beat UCLA last night, so Arizona fans are like, okay, maybe Stanford's a little bit better than we thought. But, none of the losses are horrible. I mean, the Stanford loss isn't good, but there's still plenty of good wins. Arizona still plays some very good basketball this season. And as we know in college basketball, I mean, it's kind of just a mess. You're going to lose some games that you shouldn't during the season, and you're probably going to win some games that you shouldn't during the season.
Jason Scheer, 24/7 Sports, covers the Arizona Wildcats, one of our good friends. Jason, thanks for hopping on.
Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks to Jason Scheer hopping on today and give us that off-season preview for Arizona. And look, Craig, you mentioned it. Like,